You're listening to Fresh Hope for Mental Health. Hello, my friend, and welcome to Fresh Hope for Mental Health. I'm Brad Hoefs, your host. My purpose here on Fresh Hope for Mental Health is to empower you to live a faith-filled, rich, and full life in spite of having a mental health diagnosis. What's a rich and full life, you might say? Well, I'm going to tell you today, one of the things we're going to talk about is how to have a rich and full life through a hobby. You know, one of the things that happens when we become depressed or when we become mentally incapacitated at times, it's hard to get back up. We can develop some really horrible routines, staying up all night, sleeping all day, getting agoraphobic, and we can become fixated on our issues and our problems and all of those kinds of things, and we isolate. Well, I want to talk to you today about doing none of those things and finding something that you love to do, that takes your focus, that takes maybe your creativity or whatever it is that you're good at, putting your focus at that point. After I was diagnosed some 20 years ago, my doctor gave me an assignment, and it was one of the first assignments besides going to bed at 10:30 at night every night, no matter what. That was the first thing he did, was try to get me on a sleeping schedule that was healthy. And then he said, now your next assignment is to find at least one hobby that you love. Prior to that, I had always lived to work, and I worked to live. It was all about work. I really didn't have a hobby. I didn't do things for fun. I never even read a book for fun. It was always reading for my work. So how could I find a hobby that I enjoyed and took my mind off of my god-awful grip of deep depression that I had? I was in such a deep depression at that point, it wasn't even funny. And I thought, a hobby? I don't even feel like saying the word hobby, and certainly not a hobby that is fun. But he was very firm about it, man. I'm telling you, there were several appointments where I hadn't done anything, and he was like a taskmaster almost. He believed that I needed to find something that I enjoyed and would take my mind off of rehearsing my pain and my failures day by day, moment by moment. And so very reluctantly, about the third appointment, I accepted the assignment, and I accepted the fact that he was going to stay on that until I did something about it. Even though I didn't feel like doing any of this, I forced myself initially. And I looked at 3 different areas that had been of some interest to me in the past that could become a hobby. So the first thing I tried was golfing. Now, I am not an athletic person at all. My eye and hand coordination is so off. If I'm painting a room and there's nothing in that room but a can of paint on the middle of the floor, I will inevitably either trip over it or knock the can of paint over. I just come from a long line of klutzes, I believe. So upon my second attempt to golf, I teed off and my ball hit my friend who was trying to instruct me, but it hit him right square in the head. Later, he told me that he never imagined that he would golf with his pastor and that his pastor would actually say poop spelled with a different letter more often than he did. I took this as a sign that golf really wasn't for me. I would actually try to hit the ball, and I'd have more strokes in 4 holes than most men would have in 36 holes, and it was quite frustrating. So I knew that wasn't it. That was not the hobby that was going to take my mind off of things. It was actually creating more issues. So the second area of interest that I tried was to bake specifically a perfect hand-me-down homemade white wedding cake recipe. As a pastor, I had, I think it was 18 weddings one summer all by myself, and I went to each of the receptions, and I realized how dry wedding cake could be and how awful. It might be pretty, but it didn't taste good, and I wanted a good white cake recipe. It's always been my favorite. So after about 6 months, several wedding cakes, and at least an additional 25 pounds around my belly, I realized I loved cake too much to be baking it. Because it was kind of like the alcoholic going into the liquor store and making liquor. Well, I was eating the cake just as fast as I was baking it, and plus it was a lot of work. But if somebody would have made it for me, I would have been happy to eat it. So that hobby was out also. My wife was really happy about that because I messed up our kitchen all the time. So the third attempt was to return to an old love of doing mixed medium artwork, something I hadn't done since college, and not much in college. It was even more rooted in high school and junior high. And this was, in fact, the right hobby for me. I don't do it every day, but when I do it, or when I'm stressed and needing to take a break, I can refresh my mind and spirit by doing that. I do some art, and I'm convinced it's been and continues to be a very successful, sustained recovery hobby for me. When I do it, I feel like I did as a kid. Remember when you were a kid and you couldn't wait to play, and when you played, you didn't think about anything other than the imaginary world that you were living in and all that? That's how I feel when I do some artwork. I suspect there's something in your life that's like that. It might be writing a computer program. It might be fixing a car. It might be something that just puts you into a focused mode that just fills you up instead of draining you. That's what a hobby is to me. I want to encourage you, as you're recovering, as you're moving forward in your life, find a hobby that you love and can restore you. You might have to go through a few. You might have your golfing incidences. You might have other things that you try, but God wired you up with some gifts and abilities. And when we tap into what we've been wired up for and we do those things, they fill us up. And so I want to encourage you to find that hobby. I know you might not feel like it, you might not want to do it, but I'm going to tell you it'll be well worth it. Sometimes you got to do what you don't feel like doing, because you'll feel like doing it once you start doing it after a while. Well, my friend, that's it for this edition of Fresh Hope for Mental Health. I hope it's been helpful to you. I'd love to hear from you. You can email me numerous ways on either freshhopeformentalhealth.com or freshhope.us. I'd love to connect with you through Facebook or Twitter. Just find those things on the websites also. We have videos that you can watch as well on YouTube. If you do me a big favor, I know I hound about this every time, but if you would, in fact, write a podcast review on iTunes, it would just be greatly appreciated. If you haven't seen the book, you might want to order it. You can go to freshhopebook.com, or you can find it on Amazon. Fresh Hope, Living Well in Spite of Having a Mental Health Diagnosis. And be sure and tell your friends about the podcast. If there's not a Fresh Hope group by you where you live, maybe start one. Think about starting one, having your church sponsor it, and maybe you facilitating it. Or if you'd like, you could always join one of our online group meetings. It happens virtually. In any case, again, I'm just glad that you've taken this time to listen to the podcast. Until next time, my friend, may the Lord fill you with His hope, fresh and new daily. I'm Brad Hoefs, and this has been another edition of Fresh Hope for Mental Health. God bless you, my friend. You've been listening to Fresh Hope for Mental Health. For more information, go to www.freshhopeformentalhealth.com.